Hey everybody, Jay Weidner here, Reality Check. Thanks for dropping in. Hit subscribe, like, and all that other stuff, and try to get me up to 10,000 subs. That's what I'm trying to get to. Today, we've been talking a lot about the future in the last few shows. We had astrology about the future, and then we had Johnny Enoch talking about Sylvia Browne's prophecies that were pretty eerie and strangely correct about 2020 and people wearing masks and all that. And so today I want to kind of go towards technology, I guess, the future of technology. And so I brought in Ken Swartz. Ken, say hello to my audience.
Well, hello out there. Glad to be on.
Ken makes this. This is what he does. This is C60. You guys, most of you probably know what C60 is. You're going to learn a lot more right now. And I've been taking this now for a couple of weeks, and I've noticed I do have more endurance. I can't go outside because there's so much smoke, but other than that, life is good. So Ken, when did you start making this purple power?
Oh, it's been about 6 years now. And when originally, I was working on the Moxie fusion reactor, I think we'll talk about later, but all the people that were involved in that, they were the late doctor this and the late doctor that, because they'd all died off. So I figured I'd go find something that was protective against radiation. And so I was researching, I heard about this stuff called C60. And so I went out and I bought a couple sources and I was trying it out. And for myself and my crew doing the research, so we'd have some radiation protection. The example they gave, like one set of rats would get C60, the other set wouldn't get them. They'd hit them with like multiple doses of fatal radiation. Almost none of the C60 rats would die, but all the control rats would die like that. And the C60 rats live. So I said that's for me.
Yeah, let's go back to those rat studies, because those are important to understand what you're really dealing with here. So it was in France, right?
That was the life doubling of lifespan study.
Yeah. Let's tell us about that.
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah, C60 had been, was discovered in 1985, and then they got a Nobel Prize in 1996, but it was really, really hard to work and to produce, right? So so I think at the beginning of 2000 or 1999, they actually started an animal study, and so they were testing it for toxicity, right? This is a new molecule, nobody knows anything about it. So, and what it resulted in was doubling the lifespan of animals, primarily by preventing the occurrence of cancers, cognitive decline, and other diseases associated with aging.
Yeah, I give it to my cat and dog. So I don't know if anybody else does that, but I do. Every day I just put a little drop in their food. They don't even, it's so tasteless that they don't even bother them. So they did this study where they gave C60 to rats, and then they did, and then a control group that didn't get it. And then they watched, and the control group essentially died away, and the ones that were getting the C60 had an extended lifespan.
Yes, and they actually, when the last control rat died, I think they stopped giving C60 to the test animals. So potentially they could have had a longer lifespan. But actually, the last two rats had a terrible accident and died because it was they'd been living for 5.5 years and they needed to publish. So there was a terrible accident. So technically, they probably could have lived a little bit longer.
And what's the average lifespan of a rat?
Well, these were Worcester rats, and they were kind of wimpy rats. They have they're kind of the ones you look at cross-eyed and breathe on, and they keel over. So because they wanted to make it, but probably about 5 years, 4.5, 5 years. So they were kind of like living past average rat lifespan.
Interesting. So C60, do we know how it works, what it's doing?
Oh, sure. So what C60 is, it's an antioxidant. And basically what it does, it fights inflammation, supports immunity, and brings increasing mental clarity and energy. But the way it does that is, for instance, 65% of the oxidative radicals produced in our bodies are made in the mitochondria. Mm-hmm. And the principle like superoxygen, which is an oxygen with an extra electron, and then the hydrogen peroxide, and then occasionally hydroxyl radicals and stuff. And as we age, those things go down. The larger cell provides the mitochondria. When you take C60, it completely replaces and then some, those missing antioxidants. And so what it does, it basically just lifts the oxidative burden your cells are under so your cells can operate and function correctly the way they were when you were younger. And that's how C60 works.
Gotcha. So highly recommend you look into it, especially if you're over 50, because it really does give you more energy. It really, really does. You said that you started, you discovered it because you were working with radiation and you wanted to alleviate the effects of radiation. What were you working with?
Oh, it was the metal oxygen fusion reactor. And that was, yeah, a couple of Japanese guys, Osawa and Kushi, discovered the principle back in the late 50s. And I think they really did their official studies in the early 60s, you know, even before I was around. And
they deleted them?
What?
You said they deleted their studies?
No, well, they got suppressed. Basically, Japan was under occupation. Right. They were putting in the Westinghouse nuclear reactors, right, which were, you know, the Fukushima style stuff. Yeah. And yeah, they basically just, their discoveries got suppressed. And, you know, they continued for a while, but I had read it like 30 years ago, but I don't know, about 5 or 6 years ago, I was in the right place at the right time with the right people. And we basically redid their experiments and proved that metal oxygen fusion actually exists.
And this is room temperature?
Yeah, it's basically, well, it's not particularly room temperature. What they basically did is they basically took like a sodium light lamp that you see on the street lamps. And then what they did is they added argon to it inside. And argon's a noble gas for those people out there. So it's non-reactive, but it's like a modifier in this. And you know, the sodium lamp gives out that yellow orange color. And so what they did is they slowly fed a little bit of oxygen into the lamp, and over time it turned into the bright purple color of potassium. Really? And if you actually look on your atomic chart, we got a little one here for those who study, but here's sodium. Yeah. Or no, here's sodium and there's oxygen. And if you actually fuse oxygen and sodium, it makes potassium, the next one down on the atomic chart there. So they were they did a lot of others, but that was like their flagship one. And it was a real threat because, you know, it's not only a threat to, it's a threat to metal mining and also for energy production. And so they just got suppressed. And so it's just one of those cases.
They were fusing elements and creating other elements.
Yes, and at a reasonable rate. So it was costing like $60 an ounce to fuse some sodium into potassium, or anything else for that matter.
So they could undercut the markets drastically.
Oh, absolutely.
Interesting. And so, is that the only effect from this LENR? Is there?
Well, what we did is, it put out X-rays. See, one of the things that people, like, you remember Fleshman and Pons?
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, those are the guys in Utah, I think, was the 90s, I think, that they came out with.
80s, I think.
80s, okay. They came out with the cold fusion stuff, where they said they're packing deuterium basically in a platinum or palladium lattice. And then they were getting evidence of fusion activity. And so, of course, they got really brutalized by it. And Pons moved back to France, and Fleshman kept doing it. But one of the things we discovered with MOXIE is when you lower the Coulomb barrier, that's the barrier of tunneling so that fusion can occur, it also lowers the energy level of the fusion. So instead of putting out gamma rays, like a regular fusion, where this is putting out in the X-ray band. So a lot of these guys were walking around with Geiger counters looking for gamma rays when they're actually X-raying themselves.
Wow.
Which is unfortunate.
So as I remember cold fusion, you were getting more energy out than you were putting in?
Oh, yes. And they were getting other things like helium. But one of the things is they couldn't say, because it was intermittent, they couldn't really reproduce it, but there was definitely something going on, but they couldn't give a mechanism. They had no mechanism. Well, unfortunately for a lot of these cold fusion reactor, the actual mechanism appears to have been metal oxygen fusion. Instead of like the metal fusing with, or instead of like the two deuteriums fusing to make helium, they were unfortunately fusing to make the oxygen in the experiment was actually fusing with platinum, which makes radon. And then if they were using palladium, it was fusing and making radioactive xenon. These are alpha emitters. And like, for instance, this is what they did. They were doing, well, this is an example of what happened with one the guy that actually tested this. This is like, you've seen the radon detectors that you get for your house, you put in your basement.
Yep.
Well, inside of them, there's this little chip. It's a P39 plastic. And when an alpha particle hits it, it burrows a little hole, and they soak it in hot sodium hydroxide, and then it shows pits. So like this is an example of the pits in like a raw one that's maybe been out in the air for a day or two, right? This is the and then they take it and they put it on top of one of these cold fusion cells. And that's the number of hits. Each one of those little hits things is an alpha particle. So these guys were actually venting, because if they're electrolysis cells, they vent in the laboratory air. So they were breathing like air that's like 1,000 times worse than your worst radon basement. And so that's why Fleischmann died and Pons didn't. And so a lot of these cold fusion guys have died out, and they were of course blaming that the government killed them, and well, maybe, but it looks like actually the ones they were breathing, they were living in like a terrible radon environment and getting X-rayed at the same time, and so that's what took them out.
And that's so the work you do, it doesn't do that.
Oh yeah, well no, it still produces X-rays.
Right.
But I'd figured it out that this is what was going on instead of that. And let me grab one here. Oh, well, anyway.
So you wear a lead
so I figured it was X-rays. So what I did is I made sure that we had X-ray plates in there.
Right.
So because a Geiger counter is not going to pick that up, and because of the electric spark on it, it's not going to. You're not necessarily going to. You're not necessarily. I'm not going to worry about that. Finding it, but yeah, we just basically flooded X-ray plates just like that. We turned it on, flooded X-ray plates, and also it made a whole lot of heat. What we did is we changed it from Fleischmann from Osama and Kushi's, because they were using sodium and oxygen. Well, I took deuterium, which is in heavy water, which is an isotope of hydrogen, and I fused it with the oxygen, because what we're trying to do is when you fuse things together, it releases a little bit of energy. And that energy is what the energy that powers the sun and stuff, the fusion energy, releasing energy. So what we did is we put deuterium and oxygen together, and it would turn it into fluoride 18, and then it would kick off an X-ray. But it would also release a lot of energy. And so like when we're running our things, we'd have to pack it in ice because it would melt all the ice. When we didn't have all the fuel in there running it, we could run our little electric spark thing for hours, right? It would do nothing. But the minute we had all the fuel, turned everything on, in 30 seconds, it would heat up so fast inside the reactor, the gases become too thin for the spark. So we had to pack it in ice all the time. So it was way over unity, hugely. Right. So, I mean, it basically turns every gallon of seawater into the energy, if you take the deuterium out, energy of 40 gallons of gasoline. So there's a lot of seawater out there.
Yeah, there is. So I just want to get this straight, because I'm just a layman just trying to figure this out. And you're taking oxygen, and then you're taking different metals and you're fusing them together.
Yes.
Right? And this creates two effects. One, you're creating another metal that's just one step below in the table of elements.
Yes.
And you're creating more energy than you're putting in.
Yes, all the way up to iron. After iron, it takes energy. But yeah, you can, yes. We're definitely, it's definitely positive, hugely over positive. It's easy to do, and also explains things, because like alpha particles are basically hot helium nucleuses, and when they cool down, they become a helium. And that was the helium they were discovered in these cold fusions. So yeah, it's a totally different type of fusion. I figured out the mechanism, but other people kind of figured out the whole concept before me.
And so this is an active experiments going on right now.
Yes, and we did have it third-party tested. We were kind of third-party testing Osawa and Kushi, and then we got another guys to third-party test that. And yeah, it's definitely happening. And yeah, we got a couple of bands, because it's happening not only as the oxygen fusing with the deuterium, but we also get a little fusion. We had an iron electrode in there, so anode, and so the little bit of the iron would fuse with the oxygen. So we were getting two different bands of X-rays out from the two different types of fusion going on.
So as long as you're protected from the X-rays, it should be pretty good.
Yes, and that's easy. Yeah, we basically left the room when we turned it on.
Right.
And we had X-ray detectors, and we used like dental plates. One of our friends, Gary, his brother was a dentist, so we just got some dental X-ray plates. We put them in there, and that way, because it's hard because there's electric discharge going on in the tube, so it's putting off RF frequencies, which will interfere with the Geiger counters, because they're like electric discharge. But the film, X-ray film, isn't bothered by RF at all.
Right. So this is pretty amazing. I mean, you could not only make a lot of money, but I mean, this could be the answer to free energy.
Well, yeah, we took out a patent on it, but they're fighting us at the office. Originally, they had a CIA atomic energy guy run our patent, but after he saw that it actually worked, he shifted off to some other sucker because he didn't want his name on that, because they, as a rule, they have to reject any cold fusion thing, right? That's just the way that they're running it. So he didn't want to be like one of those idiots in the future. Well, this guy, he's going to be remembered in infamy for rejecting the patent. But it doesn't matter. We've actually, one of the things, this isn't kept secret. I think I sent you a copy of the paper, and you can post it anywhere. Yeah, I mean, I have no problem with people reading this, and that's, everybody can have it. I mean, well, we do have a patent, and you have to license from us, but if you go commercial. But yeah, you can make it, and you can do this in your own basement like we did. Just be careful about the X-rays, and it never hurts to get a little C60 to help you do that.
Definitely, very interesting. So that's fascinating. So we had lunch a few weeks ago, and we were talking about one of my favorite subjects, which is the plasma universe. And I did not know, but you actually knew Trevor Constable, right?
Yes, Trevor Constable. Yeah, he taught me etheric rain engineering and a whole lot of other stuff.
Yeah, he's a fascinating guy for you guys out there who don't know. He just recently died, like 3 or 4 years ago, I think.
Yeah, about 3 years ago.
Yeah, he's 95, I think.
Yeah, but, he was up there.
Yeah, he was like the world's first hippie, and he was doing all this crazy technology in the desert in California. He's originally from New Zealand.
Yes.
Moved to California, and he started using infrared cameras with infrared film because there was no digital in the 50s. And he started photographing these creatures that are in the sky that you can't see. There they are.
Yeah, this is from his book, The Cosmic Pulse of Life. If you want to read about it, get this book, The Cosmic Pulse of Life. And he has all of these. And what it is he used, the secret too is he used an 18A filter.
Right.
For those people out there, an 18A filter blocks just the visible. So still lets you see the ultraviolet and the infrared, but it'll block out the visible. So you can just go out there, and there's these creatures, these plasmoid creatures, and he's got dozens, and other people have done this too, that are actually living in our atmosphere. And you can go out there, and they're attracted to his weather engineering things, but you can go out there and take pictures, and you can't visibly see it, but with an 18A filter on film. And also what's interesting is a lot of this stuff can only be caught on silver, the silver-based film. Some of it can't be caught on digital. And there's something to do with the etheric life force energy that he talks about. They're flying, some of these beings are giving off this energy. And so that's detected by the little crystals of silver which form, whereas in a digital format, they may not be caught. So you actually need the silver iodine or the silver crystals in your regular film to see this.
I don't think there's anybody developing infrared film anymore.
No, but you can take regular films with the 18A filter and get something.
Film, yeah, there are Kodak's coming back with film now, and so film is on its way back right now, which I'm really gratified. Much superior to digital.
Yes.
But my theory is that we're living at the bottom of a plasma ocean. We're walking around the bottom of the ocean, and all around us is this ocean we don't even know about. Inside this ocean are all these creatures, and some have intelligence and sentience, and some don't. It's just like they're different, just like sea creatures would be, right? Some care about you, some don't. Most are indifferent, and we're walking around in this world, and we're completely oblivious and blind to it. And it's actually the key to understanding a lot of the great spiritual traditions. For instance, Tibetan Buddhism, they talk about these tigles, which are these spherical, translucent objects that are in the air. And if you do your Buddhist prayers, I'm not a Buddhist, but my wife is, and if you do your Buddhist prayers, then these tigles all come and surround you, right? And I don't know what they do to you, but it's just fascinating. And there's a bunch of people on the internet that are kind of working together to photograph these things. One of them is a guy in England. I want to get him on the show, Nick Hayes. So if you guys want to look up Nick Hayes and look at his stuff, he's the best of the digital images, I think, today. So Trevor had a lot of crazy theories that actually are coming out to be true. And one of them, he said, was that the use of radar was damaging these creatures. And he was a radar guy from World War II. And a lot of the UFOs, he said, were also these creatures, that they would be visible on the radar. And then when they run to the ship to go see what was coming at them, and there would be nothing out there. And so his theories were crazy and great. And he believed that there was this energy pulsing through everything that gave it life. And I think that the plasma universe explanation is really, really the best explanation for all of this.
Yeah, he called it etheric energy,
Yeah.
but I think it would be more closely related like prana or chi.
Yeah.
That would be actually, because ether has a different connotation. But yeah, he had just, I've seen dozens and dozens of his, he had a whole book of pictures and stuff that they'd taken, and it was just amazing levels of stuff. And yeah, I think a lot of that, of course, then, radar damages a lot of things. Birds,
Yeah.
yeah, so we're kind of, it's one of the other pollutions that we're doing to our environment that are really trashing things up.
Yeah, that's why one of the reasons why the bird population has been reduced so much in the last
Yes.
few
Well, 4G
years.
and 4G too. Yeah.
Yeah, 4G. People don't realize how many birds there used to be. I don't want to wax like an elder here, but when I was young, in the fall, I could go in my backyard in the suburbs where I grew up, and I would literally watch hundreds of thousands of birds flying south. The sky would be darkened with them. There would be usually one breed all together flying, the sparrows or starlings, and literally that never happens anymore. So,
yeah, it's the same with the bugs too.
Yep. And now they're going to use CRISPR technology to rearrange the mosquito and make it less vicious. And I think that that's going to have some serious, effects. I mean,
what could possibly go wrong?
Exactly, what could go wrong? All the bats die.
Yeah.
But what do you think about messing with all these technologies that they're messing us with? They're bringing in the 5G. Even in my small little community, you'd think there'd be no way in the world that they would afford to pipe it in, because they have to go down this 12-mile long road to get here. Yet they're just going straight ahead and putting it in. This is like, they're not stopping. So what do you think about all that?
Well, it's that Internet of Things that they want to do. It's 7 billion. I mean, a 5G is basically microwave.
Right.
That's what it is. It's different gigahertz frequencies, but it's basically microwave. And they've got tens of thousands of studies out there that show the negative effects of microwave radiation, even at low levels, on living organisms. So it's not like they know it, but then there's this $7 trillion thing to make the Internet of Things. It's like this $7 trillion development market. Right. And they want that money. But I think it's going to end up something like asbestos. They're going to put it out there. They're going to tell you how wonderful it is. And then after a certain amount of time, they're going to get all these health things, and it'll get worse and worse until finally, it's undeniable. And of course, then the lawyers will flood out from underneath the floorboards, and that will be the end of those 5G companies.
Well, Cliff High seems to think that it's not going to last long. They're going to some other technology quickly after 5G. What do you think of that?
Oh yeah, well, I mean, look, if you just do light fiber directly in your computer, it's like 1,000 times faster than 5G will ever be. Okay, so why? It's like, you could just hardwire in with fiber. You're 1,000 times more than 5G. You've got no radiation problems. I mean, it's just such a superior thing, and you got to actually light fiber the 5G units anyway. So just run the fibers into the houses. I mean, it's just a ridiculous, it's one of those things they come up with, and it sounds good at the time, but when actual implementation comes into it, it's going to end badly.
Wow, that's such a great suggestion. I can't even believe that no one's ever, Anyway, so we're going to have to go through all the horrors of 5G before they finally go and put the glass fibers in, right?
Or you could even do quantum. Eventually they'll have that too, where it's just to be even faster, but there won't be any, entanglement communications. You just put like a little thing the size of your thumb drive, you'll stick it into your side of your computer, and you got instant communications anywhere in the galaxy in real time. We already have that technology.
We do. We already have that. Yeah, the military's been developing that for quite a while. I've heard that we have a bunch of them actually.
Yeah, they just don't seem to want to share it with us.
No, what do you think about disclosure? You think that they're ever going to disclose their super secrets inside their programs?
No, they'll never disclose, and if they ever do try to quote do a disclosure, it'll be a bunch of lies. I think disclosure will come when some event happens where it's undeniable, and it probably won't be in the US, and there'll be this undeniable event that happens, giant craft over some city somewhere, hanging out for hours, and it's live streamed to the world. Yeah, then you can't deny it. But yeah, I just don't ever see them actually disclosing. And if they ever did, it would probably be a lie, of the alien invasion. They're coming to get us. Give us all your money and your obedience, so we can defeat these evil aliens from Zeta Reticuli or something.
Yeah, that's actually what I've been told, is that their plan that they want to do a limited hangout on disclosure, but they don't want anyone to get hung, because we're going to have so many questions like, how long have you had this? And you mean Fukushima could have been avoided? And, so they've devised this fake alien invasion that's supposed to happen like sometime soon, I heard. And then they'll magically come up with all of the toys and defeat the aliens. They're all going to be the heroes. And, it could happen, actually. It sounds so crazy, but after everything that's gone on in 2020, I don't know. It could be.
Oh yeah, they'd make the fake alien spacecraft and they'd fight them, and then it'd be just like a Hollywood movie.
It would be CGI, but people would probably die. They'd have to like destroy some places.
Yeah, they'd have to, some people, but they did it, and they don't care.
No, they don't. We know that. And so I think that, so where do you think we're going to be in technology over the next 20 years?
Well, there's a question there, and what is the technology that's available, and whether we're going to have a society or system that's going to allow that technology to be available to commercial interest or the people. That's the question. What sort of government are we going to end up? Are we going to end up some sort of flat fascist police state, which we're kind of rapidly speeding into? We're actually here, where it's all controlled, and if you don't have your digital currency and your COVID pass or your immunity pass, you can't go out and buy or sell. Or they could just press the button and cancel your credits down at the federal crypto node world. And so yeah, that's really, we have that choice of moving toward freedom and development, or kind of going into a police controlled network and go down. And I think that's what's going to be found.
It would seem that the high-tech companies really want to take us into this high-tech fascism.
Yeah, but they're not, but we really haven't had that many, maybe they have a better computer, right? These other things. But if you look at like real developments in technology, we haven't had really any much real developments in technology. I mean, in aerial travel, right? We're still basically running on planes. You can go all this other stuff. Sure, the electronics and computer stuff's all faster, but, and the United States doesn't have a very good record of even applying advanced technology. I mean, but China has 20,000 kilometers of high-speed rail. The United States has 0. Germany and France and Spain and South Korea, and I mean, they have high-speed rail all over the place, tens of thousands of kilometers of high-speed rail. And the United States has 0. And they remember they tried to do that one from Frisco to LA, and the corruption and criminality and incompetence was so bad, they just sucked all the money out and there's nothing built.
That was criminal. That really was. Jerry Brown's, I don't know what you would call it, but my God, what incompetence. And you see the fires in California and you realize how incompetent they've been managing the forest too. I don't know where we're headed with all of this. You
Well,
know?
I think there's this rising tide of incompetence which sinks all boats. That's what's
Yes, it
happening.
does. Yes, it does. But, at the same time, what do you think about like somebody like you or me out there who makes another kind of YouTube? Is that possible? Can
Oh,
we stop
absolutely.
the slippery slope, right? We don't have to be going down this slippery slope. We can,
Oh, you got Brighteon, you got BitChute, you got all these others popping up, and yeah, I think, I mean, eventually you're kind of getting a bifurcation in the population. Maybe intelligence. There's only so much intelligence in the universe, and so there's a small group of people that are kind of slowly growing, getting smarter, and the rest of the population seems to be draining out of them, and they're just becoming television watching droids that believe what they're told. I mean, I live in Boulder, right? So around outside of Boulder. So I go into town, and there's all these people driving around in their air conditioning cars with their face masks on. I mean, or you see them hiking out here in the woods, right? All by themselves with their dog and their face masks on. I mean, that's a level of, I don't know what you'd call it. Something missing up here.
yeah, I see that too. I saw a woman riding her bike, with her face mask on, all alone out in the country. I was like, what in the world are you doing, lady? You're going to die of hypoxia. So, yeah. So I think you're right. I think the world is bifurcating, and I actually Nostradamus talked about that in one of his quatrains. That around this time the world would turn into two different humans. One would be really highly advanced, and the other would be a flatline kind of description. And I think that's what I see. And I think that the people who are the most fearful are now our leaders. And I don't necessarily mean Trump, but the governors and some of the mayors seem like they're so afraid, and it's like they don't understand herd immunity, or that the way that if everything they're doing is backwards, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think they've started to believe their own propaganda machine has basically turned them into droids themselves, incapable of really understanding anything. It's like the guys, they were doing the false positives, right?
Yes.
They didn't understand that the false positives applies to every test that's given to the people, not the people that test positives. So if like there's 10,000 people test positives, well, it's a 90% false positive. No, that's not. No, it's not that's whatever. It's a 10% false positive. Only 10% of the people. No, 90% of the people who tested positive don't have it. And so they don't look at that. They don't look at it's from the people. So but that's just simple stuff. But that's everywhere in everything, whether it's managing the forest or understanding the very basic, simplistic concepts of science or statistics or anything else. They've become they're like zombioids too, or flat brainers or something,
Yeah,
and they can't.
and I think that the smart people have been watching this whole COVID thing and going, hey, wait a minute. I remember last month you said that masks were no good, and now you're saying they're good. And hey, I remember the CDC saying that it was topical. You could touch it on the surface and get it. Then they said it wasn't. Then they said it was. And I know I heard it. And then the WHO did the same thing. And they think that we're not listening, but some of us are. And then what has caused now to happen is that now I personally, and I think all my friends, are absolutely rejecting the experts on everything. Not just, yeah. It's like,
It reminds me of a cross between 1984 and Idiocracy.
yeah. Oh God, how awful. The worst marriage ever.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know where we're headed with all of this, but I think that in the end, we're going to look back at this in a post-mortem and go, oh my God, what did we do to ourselves? And maybe we really do have to move into the, what was it, the Ayn Rand book where all the intelligent people left and went to the mountains in Colorado, and I can't remember the name of it. Oh yeah.
That's
yeah.
it's just it's not, but that's there's the potential here. I mean, some places I think they're going to break out in the high tech world. I mean, we have so much technology that could be applied that isn't being applied, that exists. And I mean, my Moxie stuff is just one of a whole dozens of like sort of quasi-suppressed technologies that if applied would advance human society, but you have to have humans with the cognitive capacity to understand and be aware and put it together. And that's just, maybe, maybe it didn't happen here in the States, but it may happen in places like in East Asia. Or
Yeah,
perhaps
that's what I would say is going to happen is East Asia, Vietnam, or someplace like that, Cambodia, someplace where there isn't an overarching power structure and they're poor enough that they need it. I think that's exactly where it'll happen. Maybe that's where you should go with your Moxie stuff.
Yeah, maybe.
The weather are smart, man. They got really high IQs.
Mm-hmm. And they can apply things. You look at South Korea and Japan and China. They've kind of left the U.S. in the dust.
Yeah, every way, educationally, and all the STEM work, we're just getting left behind. And we invent a lot of it too. So it's kind of weird to see us. We'll make a great invention, but nobody here in America perfects the invention. But the Chinese and the East Asians all are, okay, thank you very much. We'll take it.
Yeah, we become like the Soviet Union, because that's what happened in the Soviet Union. I mean, they had all these brilliant scientists that made all kinds of amazing discoveries, but there was no way to implement them. They just ended up on a shelf gathering dust. And, but eventually but that's because the communist, the Soviet ComCom system couldn't technologically innovate, because you have to do that or your economy will collapse. That's the whole Marxian thing. And so ironically, the Soviet Union collapsed due to the Marxian death spiral. Right. Whereas the communist CCP, right, Communist Chinese Party, they're Chinese, right? They're smarter than that. So what they did is they made sure that technological development would be implemented in their society. And so now they're this advanced, prosperous society. And even though they're, quote, communists, whereas, well, look at the US. I mean, we have this crony capitalist, whatever you call it, but they're just a bunch of thievings. Well, anyway, I will say that word online. But they basically created a thing where they have these giant corporations, which basically stifle innovation. And so there's no innovation into the productive capacity, so it doesn't develop. That's why we don't have an electronics industry, because they can't actually innovate. They can't because it's so corrupt, they can't allow innovations, or should I say the 737 MAX, the F-35, the USS Ronald Reagan, or the US, or, whatever else, the littoral fight
failures,
or like the Hummer, right? This is the whole thing. They got this they were the new Hummer, right? So they got this new Hummer. It's going to be the greatest thing ever. They started running them off the production line. Then they put the weapons package on it, and it warped the frame so much they couldn't open and close the doors. Yeah. I mean, and you just see that everywhere. And that's why, and look at like guys like Musk, right? Elon Musk, he had his SpaceX, and they produced a product, and it got there at a fraction. They got Boeing trying to make whatever that thing is that they're making. Complete failure.
Failure.
Yeah, and they can never do that because their whole the culture of competency is gone, and it's all politically correct now. And so
exactly. Well, honestly, I have a friend who's an engineer at Boeing, and he's had it. He's only 52, and he's retiring. And I called him up. I said, so I was mocking him for the Boeing 737 MAX. And I said, so you guys have kind of lost your touch there. And he said, no, it's not that. It's that we're not choosing good engineers anymore. We're choosing people by their skin color and their sex. And sometimes they don't even know what they're doing. And there's nothing we can do about it. And he said the software for that airplane is so screwed up, he doesn't know if they can ever fix it. And he gave up. He said, I don't want anything to do with it. I'm retiring. And so all the old guard is leaving now, Boeing. And Boeing, you're in trouble. I hate to say it. But what I hear on the inside, I'd sell my stock.
Yeah, So I think there was some of those old engineer guys, they were putting out tweets anonymously, and they said, like the 737 MAX, he said it was designed by clowns who were supervised by monkeys.
I'm telling you, I'm not flying it. Not ever.
Yeah, I guess stay with Yeah, and I mean, I think we're going to lose the air industry just as they lost electronics
Right.
completely. They're going to lose. I mean, what will the United States have? I mean, the only thing that holds this place together is the dollar being the world trading currency, and the military backing it up. And as long as that happens, they can force other countries to buy dollars and give us free stuff, right? That's what's propping it up. When that goes, the dollar, the renminbi, the Chinese renminbi comes, whatever. When that the day that the dollar is no longer world trading currency, this country is toast.
That's soon because it's going to be digital. There's already talk about it in like Financial Times. There's articles about how they're going to do the digital transition and how the dollar will not be the currency anymore, and there'll be a whole new world currency. And actually,
Yeah.
all you have to really do to push that over is Bezos just needs to create an Amazon dollar, a Bitcoin for Amazon, and
That's right. Traded in for Amazon points. Yeah.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
you're in, baby. I mean, everybody's going to be in.
The
And
Amazon Alibaba dollar.
the Alibaba dollar. Oh man, don't get me going on
Yeah.
Jeff Bezos.
That's kind of the way it goes. I mean, that's one of those things. That's one of those natural monopolies that happens. I mean, who's ever in there first and grows there first just kind of gets so big it runs it. It's the same with Alibaba in China, right?
Right.
They got in there first, they grow it, and then how are you going to? It's just one of those natural monopolies or initial monopolies or one of those things.
Well, if you look at the COVID-19 virus and you say cui bono, you've got to say Jeff Bezos.
Well, or you can say Event 201.
Exactly.
Oh, gee, you're gonna, that's just well, it's like anything. Like when 9/11, they were doing simulations of planes running it, and then
We're,
remember the London bombing 7/7. Oh, we were running the simulation of bombings in exactly the places that the bombings happened. What a coincidence! And then they come out, with this Event 201 about this coronavirus that's going to come out and cause all these problems. At the very same time, the coronavirus was being released somewhere. Oh wow, what a coincidence!
yeah. Yep, I'm afraid to say it, but it's not a coincidence. It's part
Yep.
of a long-term plan. It's going to go from now till 2030. It's all about Agenda 2030, and they're going to be implementing all sorts of things that are going to be sneaky and nasty, changing our genome, screwing with our kids, designer babies. Whole thing is coming down on us like a and
Yeah.
we're literally being run by the technocrats, not
But
by
I would,
politicians, not by the military. A bunch of guys that we don't even know their names are making all of our future decisions for us right now.
yeah, but there is hope there because if you look back, remember that a New American Century Plan they had back there at the beginning of the century, where they were going to capture all the oil in the Middle East and Caspian Basin, and then they would rule the world since they controlled all the oil. Well, that didn't really work out. So I suspect
No,
their 2030 won't work out quite the way they planned either.
I would totally agree with that. That's one of the reasons I keep talking about it, because I know that you keep everybody informed about it, then pretty soon you know what, we're not going down that road. The same thing with the whole PNAC. I mean, they were starting all the wars, and I was doing everything I can to tell everybody in the world about these crazy neocons and what they were doing, right? And they're still at work. They're still trying to get wars going everywhere.
Yeah,
So
and but they kind of they kind of destroyed. But if you look at like the status of America, the United States, at the beginning of the century and where it is now, I mean, they've killed the goose that laid the golden egg, and they're still killing the goose that laid the golden egg. I guess they're beating a dead horse now, but and so that's just why I don't see them succeeding. They're missing certain logic functions in their brains that can't really understand cause and effect beyond, they just think that they can make history up. Like we make the history, right? And, that sense, whatever I want to do, whatever I believe is truth and reality. Well, no, there's a bigger reality and a bigger truth out there. And it doesn't care what you think or believe. And if you get it, it's like laws of nature. Yeah, there's not a cop out there that's going to pull you over, but, if you break one, you will pay the consequence.
yeah. Also, it should be noted, and a lot of people don't know this, but a lot of those neocons were actually former leftists. They were leftists, heavy leftists, Marxists in college. Some were red diaper babies. The
Yeah.
parents were dyed-in-the-wool Marxists. And so it's just strange that the neocons that wrecked our country all just happen to also have been in their youth, extremely left-leaning leftists. So I'm just wondering about them. It's all just pondering what they're really about. And they
Well,
have disappeared.
yeah, look at Antifa. I mean, Antifa is like an anti-fascist, fascist organization.
Right.
Whatever, and all these leftists. Now, there was real leftists like Gore Vidal and Dean Henderson's out there and these guys. But, the real leftists, the old guys back there, I mean, they were for free speech, right?
Oh, yeah.
Censorship, free speech. They were anti-war.
Yep.
They were anti-corporate consolidation. They were all those things. These, quote, fake leftists today, and even some of those fake red baby diapers, no, they're there for more censorship. They're for more war. They're for more control. They're for more consolidation. They're for more money in their pocket. And, and maybe they've always been that way. So I think, yeah, sometimes, when people try to make simplistic things by making it left and right, maybe, it's a little more complicated than that.
It's a lot more complicated than that. I would say that the only thing that I note now that is troubling with the left, it actually used to be with the right when I was younger, is that the left has become more akin to a religion, where you can't break any of their, you can't be a heretic. You say something like, you even begin to question, like, I have leftist friends and I say, it's weird because the average temperature for where I grew up is exactly the same now as it was 50 years ago. And they lose it's like I told a Christian that Jesus really didn't exist, they just lose it. And I wonder why they lose it so much and why they have a set of rules that you can't break. And I think that's why everybody is mad at them right now at the left.
Yeah, actually the liberal brain or even the Christian fundamentalist brain, if you put it under the electrodes or Mars, it actually functions differently than like a normal person's brain or a traditional human that lives in the environment. They actually, they had this one test, they could tell with 98% certainty whether the person is a liberal or what they call a conservative, but that's actually more like a traditional person.
Right.
They've never found it actually in a traditional society, that liberal mentality, that liberal brain function that they see. Because usually, like most people, just for the audience out there, you have, when you're running full, your cognitive abilities are running, and then like there's a tiger jumps out, right? Then your amygdalas will click back to the fight and flight response and everything goes on there. Well, and then, when it's gone, it'll click back up and it'll everything run on their frontal lobes and stuff like that. Well, with liberals, it's different. It goes to the left and anterior cortex. And then it goes out to the rest of the brain. And so it's totally a left singular cortex. And that's in a mammal center in the brain, an emotional center in the mammal brain. And so it's basically like a slave mind. What will the master think? And so it keeps going there. And it doesn't matter if there's that's why the liberals, the test is basically liberals lost the ability for the disgust response. So you could have a big poo in front of them, or a big, rotting body with maggots on it. A normal person like, whoa, and you get the fight and flight response. Where liberals, it's very little.
Really?
It's very little, and you can see it on the things, and so they don't have a disgust response. It's gone, and that's probably why they did put up with a lot of disgusting things. That's
really interesting, because I remember a test about 5 years ago, and what they did is they took 5 liberal people and 5 conservative people, and then they did things to them. All right. One of the things they did was they had the liberal go in to a public bathroom, where the toilet was filled all the way up with, excrement. And then, did you see anything, in there that made you disgusted? And they go, no, just flush the toilet, sat down. And then the conservative would go in there and he would come out and go, oh my God, the irresponsible person that was. It was funny as hell. And so you're right. There is a different kind of disgust response between people. There's no doubt about it.
And this brings up a question, not only can that test tell liberals versus traditionals, right? But it can also identify psychopaths and everything. So we have a test today that we could give to any politician, any corporate head, any police officer, any lawyer, any judge, anything. We could put them in there, you could put it on, and you would know with, 98% accuracy whether they're a psychopath or a sociopath or a liberal. Well, that's just kind of like a sociopath, and or a traditional functional mind. So I mean, we have that capacity today. We could get rid of psychopaths in power. And, well, of course, there wouldn't be any congressmen left, but we could do it.
I would think that'd be a really good thing to do. Having dealt with psychopaths in my whole life, I'm really up to here with them. So they really have, it's like a helmet or something. They put it on, they read the brain waves.
NMR, the magnetic MRIs, or they actually have the ones where they put the little things on them. And basically what it is, they just flash things. We were actually working on an app for it. Because what we could do is you could FaceTime somebody, and while they're watching, there would be like a thing of poo would flash on, subliminal, right?
Right.
You couldn't see it consciously, but your subconscious could, and then we'd measure like the dilation of your pupils. And they have a new thing now where there's a lot of chromosomal damage that you can't really detect, but you can see it in the faces. But nobody's an expert at that, right? So they actually developed a computer program which can detect with like something like 97 or 99% accuracy these chromal damage that's actually reflected in the face. So you just take that with a little bit of this, and you could just FaceTime somebody, and within 30 seconds whether you're talking to a psychopath or that. So, but we never got the app done. So if somebody's out there wanting to build that app, it's still available.
Should be mandatory test, that's for sure, for anybody that runs a corporation or anybody that's a politician. Well, Ken, it's been really good talking to you. Thanks for coming on. I want to remind everybody that he makes this great stuff, Purple Power C60. Take it and get your aging to reverse, and give it to your pets too, because you want to keep pets around. Yeah, it's because C60purplepower.com. That'll go to our site. We're also on that up. I'll put that up on the link too.
Yeah, we'll get a link. And it's great being on. And sometime come on.
I'd like to have you on again.
Yeah, we'd like to. Yeah, they'd like to do a tour of the valley sometime with all the. You can only get Christopher O'Brien to come back out and visit.
He would be out here, but the COVID is stopping it.
Oh.
But I think he's coming out soon. I think he's got that equipment that he's got set up. I think he needs to check it. But yeah, we should do like a little reality check where I go around the valley showing all the weird.
Oh yeah, I did that once. It was great. There's just that valley has more weird, amazing things in it than I think anywhere else in the world.
Yeah, what, you have any opinion why what that is about?
Well, part of it's the Earth's crust is ripping. I mean, you're sitting on top of a big rip in the Earth's crust, and then the sediments from the mountains have filled it up, but there's nothing between you and the mantle just straight on down below where you're living.
That explains a lot. That explains an awful lot. Yeah. So it's the San Luis Valley, in case you don't know. We're talking about the biggest valley in North America and one of the biggest valleys in the world. And it's in southern Colorado, northern New Mexico. It's like a bowl with the San Juans on the west side and the Sangre de Cristo Mountains on the east side. And it is spookorama for sure. All right, Ken, great talking to you. Thanks so much.
Thank you.